little preamble. So I kind of know you from the I battle spaces, right? You battle under the name Gabriel, right?
That is correct.
So, I mean, one of the reasons I originally hit you up was I remember this was probably like a year ago. I don't know exactly what the date was, but I was at a friend's wedding with my wife, and we were just like at a table at the reception. It was very, very loud, and it's like a really like crowded area, and I don't hear very well. That's part of my, it's always been that way. But in particular, I struggle the most with hearing in like a loud environment where there's a lot of people, different voices coming from different directions, and so I was definitely like feeling depressed at the time, like because I'm just in this area where I kind of have to sit in it, right? Like I can't go anywhere. I'm just in the middle of an event. I can't really do anything other than just kind of sit there and just not be able to converse, and then feel kind of whatever emotions come with feeling like I can't converse with other people. But I also see other people conversing with each other, and there's like some level of feeling disconnected from society, or just like it really is feeling like being alone in a room full of people. And that so I posted, because I didn't have much else to do. I had my phone with me, so I posted a thing on Twitter, little melodramatic, and you hit me up. You messaged me and gave me a positive message, which I really appreciate. And then I kept that with me, but I also, I saw later, I think you made a post about a friend of yours who, who had, committed suicide. And I was wondering if you could, share that story and kind of, tell me, like how that was. Did you feel like you saw, any signs like going into it, or like, how did that go?
Yeah, so that was there was a friend of mine named Dan, and I had known him from many, many years ago. We had gone to the same church, and then we sort of got disconnected, reconnected a few years later and started going to the gym together. The two of us and another friend of ours named Will. And so we, for a few months there, and we were just going to the gym regularly, just talking about life philosophy. He was talking a bit about his struggles, and then sort of life happened. We weren't able to all go to the gym together anymore, but we still stayed in touch and things like that. I knew that he had had some mental health struggles that he was very open about, and honest, because it was important to him to communicate that to the people in his life, so that they could know where he was. He was he was very vocal. If he needed help, he would make sure that he got it. And that was something that I really respected and appreciated, that he was so open about the things that he was dealing with. And then I mean, I was messaging with him like on Instagram, and then I found out that he had passed away. And it wasn't like, looking back, there's always the like, oh, there was like, your brain has a tendency to reinterpret things as signs when it's just stuff that was happening. So of course there is that lens. I'm not really sure if, like, from my understanding of what happened, it was very sudden. He was just on his way to work and then decided to not actually end up going to work. And so there was nothing that really could have been done. To my understanding, it was just a spur of the moment decision, and it impacted me a lot, which is why I wrote a couple essays about it, about check on even the people that they say, oh yeah, like I had a rough time, but I'm now, like I'm so much stronger now. I can handle these things, because it's usually the people that are saying they're doing better, that you always just want to check in on, even if like from the outside everything looks like they're doing fine, and they're dealing with whatever they're going through perfectly well. Just making sure to check on those people that seem as though they're handling everything, and being strong. So
Yeah. No, I mean, I really appreciate, you reaching out to me and everything. In that moment, I mean, I wouldn't have, killed myself, but I was definitely feeling like really down and really kind of, I was getting to a point of maybe like feeling a little bit of suicidal ideation, and just, feeling um, like I don't know, just like I mean, I just always feel like I wasn't built for the world because I function differently than other people in my own way, and I feel like there's probably a lot of people who feel that as well. One of there's like a line from I think Idea who also passed away. I don't know exactly how, but like he had a line that was like he's like you're lonely, but everyone's lonely, so at least you know you're not alone, like that type of thing. That like that I thought that was a beautiful line, but also I think there's truth to that. A lot of people I think a lot of people share that sentiment of like struggling and there's not always like a good, support network out there, I think, and it's really difficult. It's hard too, I think sometimes. It's a combination of a lot of things. We like all get wrapped up in our own shit and then, don't necessarily show up for other people the way that we could. Um, but then on the other hand, it's just I don't know. Do you feel like I mean in terms of your friend, I guess you said that, he's very open about it. He talked about it a lot. And so I mean, I just wonder like, was he like going to therapy? Was he like, how is it inevitable? Like, I mean, I always wonder that, like, not just for him, but for everybody. It's just like whenever there's somebody who is going through things, you always wonder um if there's something that can be done. Uh, but I think there's a lot of factors at play and like a lot of systemic things I think that kind of drive people to be excluded from society in one way or another, or feel like they're not getting what they want out of it.
Yeah, I know that he had sought support through therapy, um, and I know that that was something that he had tried numerous times. He had gone to facilities to pursue help when he knew that he was doing very badly, because he was like, I just need to go to a place where they're going to be able to give me the support I need and protect me from myself, essentially, because I'm not good for anybody, including myself, right now. So I knew that he had pursued those things. When he passed, I'm not sure what whether he was in therapy or not. But he had schizophrenia, so it was voices in his head, and he just, from my understanding, it just overwhelmed him on his way to work, and he made a decision right there. So it was I like to I like to think that it is preventable. I like to think that there are things that people can do to help, which is why I try and if I see anyone that appears to be struggling, like when I saw your post and I shot you a message, I say, like, for myself, it's like if I see someone struggling, reach out to them because you don't know if you're the only person that's going to see that. Funny story, there was a time when I was living in Massachusetts. I was about like 45 minutes from Boston, and it was 3 in the morning. I was wrapping up at a party, and I saw online a friend of mine from many years ago that he was like, "Hey, I'm stuck in Boston, and the trains are done." And he was like, "I don't know how I'm going to get home." And he lived on a like in a beach town that's like an hour and a half from Boston, or like at least an hour. And so I just hit him up and I said, "Hey, where are you? I'll come get you." Because Boston's not a it's not a great place to just be walking around in the middle of the night. So I drove up to Boston. I picked him up and I drove him home, and we chatted. We caught up because we were really good friends. We were in a extracurricular activity in like high school, and so it was really nice. And he was like, "I didn't expect anyone to see that." And I was like, "Yeah, but it's just if you see somebody that needs some help, reach out, especially if they're like anyone, but especially the people that you know, because you have that shared core of experience. You have that rapport with them, with you." I didn't know you. I saw your battles. I saw you in the Twitter spaces. But I was like, hey, why don't I just reach out and say something uplifting, because I don't want anybody to think that they are alone. Like you said, everyone can be like, a person can feel lonely and everybody's feeling lonely. So just try and reduce that as much as you can.
Yeah. Um, I was kind of like thinking of I don't know if you ever seen the show Letterkenny. It's a very funny show. I highly recommend it. But like, there's a line that they always say where it's like, a friend, if a friend needs help, you help them, and like it's the context, it's way more humorous than our conversation. But I think there's something like true about it, is like, regardless of whatever you're doing, if people embrace that kind of mentality where they drop everything that they're doing to try to help others, I think, the world would be better off. I think, in terms of like, you going to drive, I presume like an hour or an hour and a half to go pick this, person up.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people probably wouldn't do that. Like, they just wouldn't take the time out of their day. And I think a lot of people, even if they have a friend who would do that, they might feel like, I don't have a friend that would do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes, it's just like there's a level of shame in asking, or there's a level of whatever. Um, I don't know. Like, I mean, do you ever feel that way? Do you ever feel like, well, let me ask you this actually. Do you feel, do you ever feel like I, Gabriel, do things for others, but others do not do the same for me? You know what I mean? Like, where you're kind of like, you where you feel like maybe it's a double standard, where you're trying to like put yourself out there to help others, but you don't always receive that same amount of help in back. There are people who kind of think that way.
Yeah. So a couple things. So the first thing is that, when going off of what you were saying, uh, one of my thoughts is that when you don't ask for help, you're preventing people the ability from over delivering in your life. So if you don't ask for help, there may be someone that was perfectly willing to drive over, pick you up, help you replace a tire, something like that. So people shouldn't have that shame. But going specifically to the question you just asked, yeah, I mean, there's been plenty of times where I've given more than another person was willing to give back. I've showed up more than another person was willing to show up. And I actually wrote an essay on it like a couple weeks ago, and it was you lose. The title of it was "You Lose by Keeping Score," and so it's about the thought process of keeping track of how much you give to other people and how much they give back. But on one hand, you do need to have a holistic sense of, like, if someone is constantly taking from you and never giving anything back, or giving back very little, that's obviously, there's an imbalance in that relationship. So looking for relationships, friendships, and just building connections with people that want to give, that also want to show up for other people. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm not doing anything, of course I'll come help you. And so, not necessarily keeping track of every single minute little thing that you do for people, because that's not healthy. I've seen people do that, where they'll keep track of, like, oh well, this person always likes, I always like their posts,
Right.
but they're not liking my posts.
And then it becomes
I do
very
that for them.
transactional.
Exactly. And it's like, there should be a degree of holistic, I guess, compensation, where it's like, I show up, I help this person, I like their posts, I guess. Not really getting to that detail, but like, people that show up in your life and help you, that you
Right.
also help. Um, and so that is like, there's certainly been times where I should have asked for more help, and I had the knowledge. I knew that I had people in my life, but I was dealing with a lot of shame. And so I just felt like, what if I'm asking, like, they're going to know that I've either made these bad decisions, or that I'm not doing well. And so I don't want to deal with that with them. And so it was not that I didn't have the people, it was that I was just too ashamed to ask. And I've I feel like I've learned my lesson. I've had situations that came up where I could have made a lot more money if I had helped. That's just one scenario. where it's like if you would have asked for help, we would have been able to fix this earlier and you wouldn't have spent so much money on this. But that's you a lesson's going to come around until you learn it. And so I hope that I've learned it at this point to be able to ask. I'm blessed to have a lot of people in my life that are willing to and capable of helping me in just about any area that I may need. Um, but it's it's always an ongoing thing of checking yourself to be like, okay, if you need help, ask for it.
Mhm.
Because as you grow, as you get older, just being a guy and it's like asking for help is sort of like a lot of people are like, oh, you can't handle that on your own. It's like, well, no, I can't. This is a little bit more than I can tackle. And
Right.
being the having the humility to be able to ask other people for help and say, hey, I don't know how to do this or I don't know how to handle this. Can you help me? Can you teach me so that I can be able to deal with this better going forward?
Right. Do you feel like you kind of take from any philosophical kind of is there anybody in particular who like kind of inspires your general ideology and how you navigate life, especially with respect to, you know, things like this where you're obviously you're you don't have this rigid idea, which I think some people do. There's a lot of people I think who do, that have this idea of a transactional relationship. You do me a favor, I'll do you a favor, but if I do you two favors, I expect that you're going to do a second one. And you're right that, like, there is such a thing as you know an imbalance where one person is taking advantage of another person.
Hmm.
But everybody has to be aware of that and able to set their boundaries so they're not being walked on.
Yeah.
But there's something specific about like abandoning like the transactionalness of everything, right? And I think, it's like I would think about like I don't know, I always think about American culture and I think about like what we're always taught, like and I feel like this is built into us, like to be transactional, to be like, consumeristic in a way that like, I'm trying to, yeah, everybody's very individualistic, really is the right word. Where like, everybody wants to be, in our space, it's like a famous rap battler, or in another space, it might be like, stand-up comedy or something else. But everybody is focused on like, how do I get myself to the top and who's going to be there to support me? But it's never really kind of quid. It's not, well, it's not even like, it's only quid pro quo if it comes with a reciprocation. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Um, I I'm trying to think of if there's like one or just like a handful. I'd say, I guess one example would be Jesus Christ.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, he showed up and said, "Hey guys, stop! Like this is the house of my dad. So get your marketplace out of here. Stop trading. Like this is a holy place." So sort of that where it's like have the separation between your like the spiritual things that you do and the marketplace that you engage in. Um, I don't know. I read Stoics. I read from philosophers. I read a lot. I've started reading more because I got this really fancy little e-reader, so I'm able to read books at the gym without having to lug a big book around.
I did.
Um,
I saw you make a post about that, I think, and I didn't like. How does that work? Because like,
yeah, so it's this thing. It's called the XTE Inc. This is the 3X,
right.
and it's got like 32 gigs of memory. So I have right now I have like 50 books on it.
It's like kind of
And
the
it,
nerdiest thing ever, though. It's like I'm just gonna be working out, and then in between my sets, I'm gonna be reading.
yeah,
How
because
how how long are your rest breaks? So like, I've been doing like 1 minute, so I look at my phone, but that's like it.
yeah, so my rest breaks are usually like a minute 30,
Yeah.
but I can usually get like one, two, maybe three pages in. So yeah, it's super nerdy, but I'm like I
I'm not
personally was
shaming you, by the way. I'm just,
yeah.
I'm a nerd, so I just like I'm not at all looking at that negatively. I'm just acknowledging what it is.
Oh yeah, it's completely nerdy. I know that. who brings a book to the gym. But yeah, so I'll just get a couple pages in between sets. I'm able to get like an hour of reading done while I'm at the gym because I'm there for like an hour and a half, get my exercises in and read between. So I try and read, I try and learn, I try and grow, and just have just behave in a way in the world that would be beneficial for everybody that meets me. So that's sort of just, and so through time and experiences, I've grown. And so that's, yeah, that's just my approach. And I think that a lot of people are struggling. I think that a lot of people have issues that they're not necessarily aware of. And so just being able to lighten the load of anybody that you come in contact with so that you can sort of just shoulder a little bit of their burden with them so that they can get a little bit of breathing room and
Right.
then hopefully have the space and the capacity to do some work on themselves and figure out what things they may be suffering from that could be their responsibility to fix, and also what may not be, but having the time to be able to tackle those things that may not be within their power to fix, but they could do a couple things to make it a little bit easier on them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Um, do you think that there's anything that we as a society could do better to kind of normalize I don't know. It's like, I mean, my first thought is like masculinity is very rigid. It's very, it's just again like you were saying a little bit earlier. It's like if you're a man, it's like you're expected to be able to handle all things without really having any assistance with it. Whereas the reality is that everybody's circumstances are very very different. I mean, people grow up with, some people grow up with a father, other people do not. Some people grow up with wealth and other people do not. And they're, some people, or not even like whether it's a dad, it could be just, the supporting system. Did you have brothers? That's also a factor, and so I just feel like, when people like when people kind of say, "Oh, you're a man, you're supposed to be able to handle all these things," they're kind of throwing a blanket statement over a lot of different conditions, right? A lot of different things that like people grow up in a lot of different ways. So they like yeah, somebody who grew up with a dad who and grew up in a house where you're constantly updating things in the house that would be more familiar with how to use a drill, or be able to do actual like carpentry work or something like that, because number one, you've been around somebody who's been doing it, you've seen what tools you need to do it, you've watched it actually happen, you've seen what failure looks like, you've seen what success looks like, you have all this information to go off of, and then you look at a completely different person who maybe grew up in an apartment, didn't have a dad, didn't have any like male figures in their life, and all of that is new, right? Like it's literally you've never experienced any of that. So it's just like
Yeah.
to just be like, okay, both of you have the exact same condition. You're a man and you're a man. You're both equally, capable of figuring out whatever the fuck it is that you have to figure out how to do. I don't think that's right. I don't think, and like, so it's just like the idea of just telling people like, and that's just one example of like a specific thing where it's just about like, fixing something at the house. But like, it could be other, emotional things. It could be other, like, hobbies or whatever. I just think that the idea that like, you're supposed to do everything individually without really having much collaboration, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I would agree that that doesn't make sense. Like you said, those two scenarios where it's like one guy has a dad that was a builder, a handyman that taught him how to do things, and then another guy didn't have a father that knew how to do anything. They they both have knowledge and skills, and the one guy may be able to fix drywall better than the other. And it's on us to be able to look for the people that are going to help us grow, and also throw away 90% of the things that we hear from what other people's expectations are. Because I think that's one of the main things, because I think that there's a lot of people that are very loud about what their projections and expectations are for other people.
Right.
And entirely in the wrong. They're either completely in the wrong because they have no idea what they're talking about, or they're just maliciously injecting incorrect information to make people feel worse.
Right.
And so I think that that's one of the big issues. Because I mean, for me personally, I think a man should be able to provide for his family, whatever that is,
Right.
or just the life partner that he chooses, be able to provide. So that's just what I believe, and that's fine for me. But I understand that that may not be, and I understand that there's a lot of things tied into that. Where it's like, well, do I expect every one of them to be able to fix drywall? No, but just being able to protect those that they care about, whether they choose to get married or not, or just live alone, whatever that is, be able to protect those that you care about. I think that that's important. That doesn't necessarily mean every single one of them needs to be a roided out with the muscles bulging out of their forehead and stuff like that, but just like
I
be
mean, if not,
competent.
if you're not one of those guys, how do you protect yourself from those guys, you know?
Exactly. Well, you get a gun. Um, I think it just boils down to competency.
Uh-huh.
Just being able to competently provide, and whatever that means for each individual person, I can't give an exact definition, but I just think that's what it means for me. So I want to be able to provide financially. I want to be able to be strong enough that I can carry my family out of the house in a fire. When I was making a workout plan with a trainer, he asked me, he was like, what do you want to be able to do? And I'm like, I want to be able to carry like 200 pounds in each hand and be able to run like 200 yards, which was very, and he was like, what? And I was like, I'm just imagining like if I were in a building that were on fire and I needed to carry two people out of it. I'm
Right.
like, that's just, and he was like, that's a fun, like, that's an interesting choice for what your goal and objective is. And I was like, that's what it means for me. That's what
Right.
I want.
Well, so on that topic, I guess, because I was literally just, kind of thinking about this earlier. Don't know if I should say the name. I won't. But like, somebody was posting on Twitter, and I just saw a conversation in general talking about like, I think it was like, MMA and just like people talking about like, who would win in a fight, yada yada. It was more specific to the actual people. Um, and I think it was just about like, training versus like how big you are, not really anything about like MMA itself. But so I was thinking to myself, doesn't that seem a little bit like paranoia a little bit? And that kind of goes, to your situation as well. Yes, there is a probability of like the house catching fire. But I mean, I don't know. It seems like, for me, anyways, I'm just like I always evaluate like what the trade-offs are, and your situation is a little bit different. I was thinking more along the lines of like, okay, you're training MMA to be a fighter or to fight
Yeah.
people. You're not training
Yeah.
to be a fighter. You're literally just, going to, martial arts, whatever. I'm guessing at least 2 times a week. So you spend about 2 hours or more a week training in MMA. So you have the opportunity to defend yourself or defend, I guess your family in like a hand-to-hand, fight with, somebody that might I don't know, you run into them in a bar or something. That's my like guess. Like it does feel to me a little bit like paranoia because I feel like number one, the odds are already pretty low, especially if you kind of just, go about your life and you're not, looking to start conflict. I feel like conflict doesn't, yes, it does happen. Yes, there is a chance that, at any time, there could be an altercation, but I just think that the probability of that is really low. But in this particular scenario, a little bit different than yours also is like, you're training to fight a person in hand-to-hand combat when the reality is if you're getting like mugged or something similar, there's the possibility that A, they have a gun, B, and these were also like 40, mid 40-year-old men talking about this. So it's like if that person that like ends up mugging you or whatever is also younger and stronger than you or equally trained as you, then that
Yeah.
training is only going to be so useful. Scenario number three is if you get jumped by multiple people. So the way that I like kind of break all this down in my head and analyze it is like, it's like you're spending whatever, 100 hours a year, or no, it's gonna be a lot like more than that, but you're spending like X amount of hours a year training to fight for this very specific scenario where if it does happen, yeah, it would be useful. But fights very very rarely ever actually kind of play out that way in real life, and there's so many scenarios where it won't necessarily like play in your favor even if you are trained. So I mean, like to me it just feels like bordering on just like not even worth it at that point, especially
Mhm.
because I feel like it's all of this like hypothetical scenario that's not like super likely to happen anyway. I'm knock on wood, I'm it's like since I've been at least in my mid 20s, I haven't encountered a scenario where I feel like I'm really like likely to get into a fight, right? Like I just it just doesn't happen that often. And it's also just partly because I don't like go to bars and clubs anymore. But like, once you get to a certain age, it's like, are you like, are you in your mid 40s and still going clubbing? I don't know. Some people are, and that's, their prerogative. I don't, it's like I'm not gonna tell them what they can or can't do, but I just feel like, at some point it's just like, there's better things, more things to worry about, I feel.
Yeah, I think that there definitely is a lot of people that are afraid of phantom scenarios that they aren't necessarily going to encounter. But I also think that for for a lot of people, it's or not a lot of people. I'd say in general, it's all LARPing until it isn't.
Right.
And so, like for example, I live in Idaho, and there was a shooting at an In and Out about an hour away from me the other day, and there was some dumbass kid that pulled an AR out of his car in the middle of the drive-through.
Mm.
Like he's waiting for his food for some reason, gets out with an AR and starts shooting. Unfortunately, a handful of people did lose their lives. But there was a gentleman that was on the other side of the building that heard the shots, got out, and confronted. He went around and he was sort of hiding behind a car, but he confronted and he had a gun. And this dude is like he had like a YouTube channel. He was a guy that had been training for shooting, and like reacting in a self-defense scenario.
Right.
And if you had seen his videos, like if his videos went viral a week ago, it would be very easy to poke fun at them and be like, you're paranoid. It's like where you live, like it's very unlikely that there's ever going to be a shooting around you. Like what are you preparing for really?
Right.
And then there was a shooting that happened at an In and Out. He was there. His stance was exactly the same it was in the videos. And I think that there's a healthy amount of concern that people should have for, just like I said, being competent. Just know your way around a firearm. Know how to throw a proper punch. I don't think everybody needs to be in boxing or jujitsu classes for 6 hours a week to be able to take down multiple attackers. Like you said, it's not super likely that that's going to happen. But I think that people that think, oh, that could never happen is not the right thing. And it's just like the scenarios. It's like it the chances are low, but it's never zero.
Right.
And so being able to just sort of construct your life around that, do the things that you enjoy, be capable, hopefully, in different scenarios, if that's something you feel called to do. But also it's like there's different roles in emergency scenarios. If you are a person that knows how to do CPR, maybe you're not supposed to be the person that's taking on an attacker or like trying to get out of a mugging.
Right.
But if there was an emergency, get your CPR training. Like, be prepared for, it's very unlikely that you'll ever have to do CPR for a person, but people always go to those classes because it's, like I said, it's always low but never zero.
Right.
So I guess that's just my perspective on that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I definitely don't think that, I definitely don't think that the percentage is zero. I acknowledge that, there's always a very real, whether you're talking about a fire or whether you're talking about, an actual, like, whatever, shooting or a mugging type scenario. There's definitely a very real possibility. And I think I feel, and I mean, I haven't done research on this, so, but I assume that there's statistics to back it up that, the more impoverished, the country gets, which does seem to be the trend, right? Like, when you talk about like wealth inequality and the class shrinking, the worse off American people are financially, the more crime is going to rise. And so I think that all plays a factor. My thought when you said that, like, I'm just a very kind of like sometimes analytical person. My thought isn't necessarily, oh, I don't think that this thing is worth doing. It's more so like I think about trade-offs, like, how would I spend my time? I only, I only have a certain amount of time and I have to like figure out how to fit, as many things as I want to accomplish. And, sometimes I just don't have the energy and the only thing I accomplish is laying in my bed and doing, jack shit. But like, but sometimes it's just like trying to figure out, how do I utilize my time in the most, effective way. And like when you said, I think you made a great point, that maybe I hadn't even considered as much was, in that scenario, yeah, you have a person that could be, responding with arms and, the shooter guy, who, to be fair, like you're talking about somebody who is like probably in the top, 1% or maybe at least 5% of most prepared people, for that particular scenario,
Yeah.
which is not just like I train in firearms like once a week or I go shooting at the range or whatever. That's somebody who like probably I'm guessing is wearing camouflage gear on YouTube and is spending half his life filming himself shooting cans off of something, right? I'm
Yeah.
guessing. I don't know. I haven't seen the video, um, but I mean like there's also these other scenarios, as you mentioned, where like, there's the person that's doing CPR, and it just like makes me wonder, like, what other roles might there be? Like when you have these type of situations, how can people respond, and what roles are possibly deficient? Like what roles are what roles are we missing that people aren't even talking about? Because it always, it's like it feels like we over index on fighting like the macho army guy. You know what I mean? Like we over index on if there's a shooting, we need like if there's a bad guy with a gun, we need a good guy with a gun, right? That phrase exists. But like there's not
Hmm.
necessarily like if there's a bad guy with a gun, we need a CPR expert. If there's a bad guy with a gun, we need, this or that. Like and I'm wondering, if there's other things that we might be under indexing on. Um I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Um, I you with what you said, you reminded me. It's actually the background on my phone is a Thomas Sowell quote, and it says, "There's no solutions, only trade-offs." And I really like it. He was talking about it in a specific domain, but I think it applies in everything. Where it's, yeah, there's, and like you're saying, everybody wants to be the hero. Everybody wants to be the guy that takes down the shooter in a scenario. But it's like we also need people that can communicate, that can keep a level head, that can understand and observe what's going on in a scenario. And it's like, okay, we need people that are trained in CPR to respond to this situation. We need people that are contacting paramedics. There's plenty of things, and it's just like, look at what your skill set is and just sort of be prepared for the most extreme situation for what your skill set is.
Right.
And it's like if you're a person that can take in a lot of information and sort of compress it down into a very, very clear scenario, and you're good with communications, okay, just practice that so that you can, in, I don't know, an emergency, I know this is like an absurd scenario, but just like being able to communicate what's going on effectively.
Right.
And um so I think that that's a good thing. But yeah, it's just like we all have our different talents, our different skills, our different gifts. And so just trying to pursue those to the highest degree, because you never know when it's going to be needed by other people.
Mhm.
And so if you're expert marksman and you're the guy, maybe get a gun. But if you're just a person that can stay calm in a scenario, and it's like I can keep timing even when my heart is beating in my ears, it's like, okay, get your CPR training so that if somebody went down, you were able to. And like there's so many more scenarios that you're going to need CPR than you're going to need a gun, honestly. I was at a it was a like it was an island festival for like Hawaiian and Polynesian culture at a park. I can't even tell you how many people fainted. Like so many
Is it
people. It
like
was
heat
super.
or?
Oh yeah, it was heat. It was like 103 degrees outside. There was a handful of tents, but like people weren't prepared for it. There was people that were passing out, falling over, having seizures, and it's like there would be a whole bunch of people that tried to like rush around them, and it's like no, like there was people with microphones and stuff saying like give them space. There's people that we have that are trained for dealing with this scenario. Don't just get super close, start crowding them and being like, oh, what can I do to help? It's like let the people that know what they're doing into the area. We need to make a lane so that we can get the ambulance into this park.
Right.
But yeah, so get your CPR training. That's what you should take from this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it does come in handy in a lot of different scenarios. I was thinking, like, I've done like some like marshaling for like protest and stuff, and like and they always need number one, they always need more people, and there's always a really big deficiency of people that are willing to volunteer, that are willing to like go out. But then also, yeah, they need people who are trained in that type of stuff. And that there's a big shortage of that as well. But like you said, there's a lot of different scenarios where it could come in handy. I yeah, same with like randomly even like a Heimlich. I was just thinking like I don't think there's a lot of people that can appropriately deliver it. Just a lot of like first aid things that I don't know. Like, is that something that like you feel would like be worth learning in a school? Like, is that like I don't know. Like we learn like what like again talking about trade-offs. Like it's like what do you cut in order to make room for that if that's a but I mean like isn't that a better use of time sometimes than like I don't know.
Well, I mean, we already don't
You're a
teach how
poet, so
to.
I don't want to say poetry. I don't want to
Yeah,
I don't want to cut poetry and be like we need CPR, but
yeah. I think that there's a lot of wasted time in school, honestly. And we already don't teach people how to file their taxes,
right.
which is criminal in my mind. But
Yeah.
I think that you would be able to probably take time from just about any class, or even not, but just like throw an extra class in there for like life skills. And one of those, like I was part of a paramilitary program when I was in high school, and it was like we LARPed as military people. It wasn't ROTC. It was even lamer than that. But but one of the things that they focused on was emergency services. So
Right.
it's like learning how to put on a tourniquet, which is super simple to do, but so useful. We also learned CPR, but it's like learning a tourniquet. It's like, oh, who's going to have to? It's like any person that's been near a serious car accident, if they're like, if living in Massachusetts, there's tunnels, there's narrow highways, and it's difficult for the emergency services sometimes, especially with how bad an accident may be, to be able to get to it. And if you're there and you know how to put on a tourniquet for a person that's bleeding, and you know how to do that properly, you could be saving someone's life. So I think that, yeah, just like throw a vocational, especially for like people in high school, that for life skills and emergency response, where it's like You don't have to like it. Everybody doesn't have to take it. You don't have to force everyone to do it, because there's going to be plenty of people that they're not built for that. There's some people that pass out at the sight of blood. And I
Mhm.
don't think causing them to pass out in the middle of school is a very beneficial choice. Um, but yeah, just like teach them how to do taxes, how to do a tourniquet, how to pack a wound. These things they're not super difficult. And once you know how to do it, you know how to do it. And it can make the difference of saving someone's life in a extreme scenario that hopefully you don't, and most people are not going to run into in their lifetime. But it's much, in my opinion, it's always better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So
Yeah.
that's just my thoughts.
All right. So hypothetical situation. Are you currently in a relationship?
No.
Okay. So let's say that you meet somebody and you want to marry them. Like this is, presumably going to be, the person that you marry. And they tell you that you can't have a gun. What is your response? Is that a negotiable? Is that how do you feel about that?
Well, my first question would be why.
Mhm.
What is the thought process or fear that they have regarding it? Because I can perfectly understand if someone was through a certain kind of scenario where they were like, I will not have that in my home.
Right.
But if this is a person that I'm potentially considering spending the rest of my life with, it's like, well, I feel like that's important to have it and never need it, than need it and never have it.
Right.
So I guess it would, because for me that would be a non-negotiable. But yeah, just asking, it's like, what is it? Like, is there, because if I put it on the table, it's not going to do anything. They
Right.
don't just get up and walk around and shoot things. They're inanimate objects. It's just going to sit there. But it's like, what is the fear? Because there could be some very deep seated fear that they have, and concern. And so that would be sort of my first thing. And if it was something we weren't able to work out, then that's unfortunate. But that's just my personal thing. But I would seriously try and like just work to understand and helpfully make them more comfortable about
Right.
it, than to be, because I'm like, I'm not gonna arbitrarily, like, there's not very many things that I would say like, absolutely not in my home will we have knives, or just like something like that.
Yeah.
So
I
I'd
mean,
be like,
yeah. I mean, I would say like knives are a little bit different just because they have the
yeah.
utility. But like, I don't know. Just do you feel like? I mean, I'm just also wondering what like where where you're coming from as well. It's like, do you feel like what's your biggest concern? Like, somebody breaking in, or like how
Yeah, honestly, it's like when I had sold, I owned a house in Massachusetts, and there was, in the town that I lived in, the amount of break-ins was increasing just about every single week. And now, if I go on that town's Facebook page, there is not a day that there is not the posting of a death, whether that is someone where they're breaking in, car accident, where someone's crashing and killing another person. Like, it's so bad in the town that I moved away from.
right,
And so it, like, a break in was a serious concern. And so that would be, because I didn't always carry it with me, but because there was plenty of certain scenarios where I didn't feel it was necessary, and I didn't think that there was going to be a likelihood that I would need it.
right.
But it did help me sleep better knowing that I was able to protect my home in that scenario. And I mean, Massachusetts has some pretty wonky laws about guns, and what is acceptable self-defense and what's not. But, and I mean, that's not up to me, and I don't live there anymore, so I don't got to worry about it.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so it's just like, in that scenario, if someone's breaking into my house and they have the intention of harming me or any of the other people that live in my home, I'm going to make sure that they don't, because I'm not going to let it's like if you are breaking into my home with the intention of causing harm, if you have any kind of weapon or you try and pick up things in my house and use them as weapons, you don't mean me good. I'm not going to be like, oh, well, they were just looking around. No, they entered my locked home. They broke my window in. They weren't just looking to see if I had something. I'm not going to give them the benefit of the doubt in that situation.
I mean, what if it's Santa? He's just looking for cookies and
If it's Santa, I will. I'm not, because like I probably wouldn't
gonna
wake
pop
up. I
Santa,
think he has
bro.
a spell. I think he has a magic spell that keeps me asleep for that, and so he'd just sprinkle his dust on the house, and
I feel
I'd
like
be
that should
okay.
be like a kid's book or something like Daddy Pop Santa. Like,
Yeah, yeah, that would be a really Dad shot Santa. That would be a good one. That would be a good one.
no, I just like I don't know, man. I want to live in a world where like none of it's necessary. Like I want to live in a world where like people are just peaceful and like, able to kind of get along and that like break-ins don't happen. Obviously, that's not a reality. But like
Yeah,
but I also like there's also part of me that feels like it feels like a vicious cycle, right? Like it feels like I don't know, it's like you were talking about like how you see like an increase of like break-ins and stuff, but again then I go back to thinking, okay, this is social media. We now have more exposure than we ever have to like what's happening all the time.
hmm
And it like it has been that way my entire life. I grew up like in the 90s. I mean, even when we didn't have internet, the news was like 24/7, like this is what's happening, and it's always a cycle of how bad everything is going to be. And it feels like to me the whole purpose of all of it, the whole purpose of news, the whole purpose of social media is to keep people in a constant state of like
fear
it's
and
like fight or
isolation.
flight. Yeah, fear. Like just like constantly. And because it's like fight or flight, that like makes people more violent, right? Like it just makes people, not just you, but like I mean, just like everybody just seems to kind of like fall into this where it just feels like there's not really a winning solution, right? It's just like we're already in the loop, right? Like it's like we're already at the point where like at any point somebody could break into your home, so you have a valid argument, right? Like so it's not even that like I disagree. It's just that um it feels a little bit hopeless sometimes.
Yeah, and I mean, I wish everybody could be friends, and just everybody was happy and content, and nobody wanted to break into anybody else's stuff, and nobody felt the desire or inclination to do that. But it's like this is the world that I live in, so I gotta. So it's my perspective is behave in a way that creates the world I want to live in, but also be prepared and capable of dealing with the world that I do live in. So it's like live out my values and be friendly. Don't be scared and isolated and constantly, because it's like when I would go out, I was doing a, a couple of years ago, I had worked for a company, and then the company got acquired and I got let go after that. And I was used to running a team of like 30, 40 people. And so I was good at my job. But then after that, and the market for jobs changed. And so I was doing DoorDash. And so I was in the car a lot, and I was meeting people all day.
Right.
And even though it was the same town that I saw crimes happening in, I didn't respond to every single person. I was just like, oh, is this person going to hurt me? Because 90% of the people that I ran into on a daily basis, like even going into people's homes to drop off their orders, most of them are just nice people that are
Right.
also just concerned. And so just trying to be friendly and demonstrate, because of course there's going to be horror stories of people that didn't get their orders delivered, and or people that tampered with their orders and different issues like that. And it's like, just do your best, just be nice to people, and you'll get good responses. And yeah, so live in a way to build the world that you want to live in, and but just be capable of dealing with the one that you have, so that you're not mystified when bad things happen. Understand that you don't have to be constantly paranoid. It's not beneficial to be constantly paranoid of like every bad thing could happen, because that's, you are just building a hell for yourself to live in and
Right.
for anyone else that deals with you, because you're constantly afraid of every single thing. And that's no way to live either. But just understand, it's like, okay, this could happen. Do I have a response for it? Yes. Do I have a response for it? No. Should I get one? Maybe not. So it's just have the have the maturity to be able to deal with the things that you may run into, or at least have some kind of response to them, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think, especially with a job like DoorDash, you're definitely like exposing yourself to a lot of different people, and like and there's definitely a much higher, I think, probability of like, getting robbed or something like that. So I mean, what I mean, like, what was your experience doing that for, like I like I would imagine, like, yeah, people leave like, bad reviews or whatever, but that's not even like, that's like the least of my concerns, really. Um, but I mean, like, I don't know, just like, you're constantly. That's the thing. It's like every job is different, right? And like, so there's also like, going back to this kind of like, lower class versus middle class divide, right? Because middle class also like, there's a separation there, right? Like, it's like when you
Mhm.
work middle class, often you're like, in, especially like white collar, which, all of this is kind of changing with AI, but like, so there's a lot of like weird rabbit holes I could go into, on that, but like, but it's this idea that like when you're in like, middle class, you're so far away from that. Like, you live in corporate culture, you live in like, all of these people are like, slaves to HR, and it's unacceptable to, act certain ways, but like if you just live, in the streets, or you just like live anywhere that like, has, impoverished communities, like that's just the way it is, and that's like, it it it, it creates such a different perspective of like what it means to live in different areas, and why I think a lot of like our politics is very divided, because we also have these like very night and day kind of experiences, I feel like.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of distance, and a lot of gaps in the communication between those things. I think that because the company I worked for, I was there for many years and I worked my way up in the leadership of the department, and it was very white collar, nightmares of HR, all that fun stuff of corporate life.
Right.
And then working for DoorDash, I'd say that the majority of it was very positive. I think that most people were appreciative. Of course, you're going to have some crazy people that leave like terrible reviews, and it's like that's not even anywhere close to what happened. Um, I think that one of my notable experiences was that every single person that lived on a third floor apartment that ordered at least two cases of water, they always have broken legs. So they can never
Why
meet
would
you
they
at
get
the
the
door.
third floor apartment then? Like, I just,
I'm not judging. I would see the note and it's like, hey, my leg is broken. I can't come downstairs. You need to bring the groceries up. It's like, okay, this is the job that I have. This is the work that needs to get done. Um,
right.
but yeah, there for most part, it was super nice. There was one guy that threatened me. And that was really fun because it was the middle of summer. I was walking up, like he had a super long driveway, and I was walking up carrying, it was 2 bags of food. And he comes out of the garage and he was like, hey, how's it going? And I was like, good. How about yourself? He's like, oh, I was just enjoying this wonderful summer day. And I was like, yeah, here's your stuff. And so I go to hand him the food and he like nearly drops it, and because he just like he didn't fully grasp it. And so I was like, oh, are you good? And he was like, yeah, I'm good. Why are you asking? And I was like, I was just wanted to make sure that your order didn't fall. And he was like, okay. And then he was like, you have a safe trip home. And I was like, okay, thanks, man. I'm like, you have a great night. You too. And so then I just walked back to my car. I'm typing up that I completed the order, and then I drive. It was my last order for the day. And then I get home, I get a phone call about 20 minutes later. And I didn't pick it up because I was like, I have a weird feeling because it would show like DoorDash is calling. So I listened to the voicemail, and it was that last customer. He was like, hey, he was like, don't ever threaten me again. Me and my boys are getting in my truck and we're going to come beat the hell out of you. He's like, we're going to kill you. And I was like, you told me have a safe night. I said you too. And you took that as me threatening you.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, well, I'm home. He can't find me. But then I just reached out to support, and I was like, here's this voicemail from a customer that's threatening to come find me. I know that he can't, but just so you guys know. And they're like, okay, we'll ban that account because that's not how you deal with people. But like 99% of the orders were perfectly fine and no issues. And like everybody was super nice and appreciative, because there was so many scenarios where like there was a guy that he lived on the third floor and he came to the door and he did have a broken leg. And he was like, it wasn't broken before when I moved in. He was like, I would meet you at the door if I could, but it was just not working. And it's like there were so many people that were genuinely appreciative of the work that I did, because it's like I was helping them and they needed some help. They need someone else to do their grocery shopping.
Right.
And it provided, and it helped pay my bills for a time. So I think it was a wonderful learning and growing experience, and I met a lot of very cool, very interesting people.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about like kind of the experience that you were talking about where he kind of like does a 180 where one moment he's just like, "Hey, how's it going? You good?" Like that, and then like the second, then like all of a sudden it's like, "I'm gonna kill you," et cetera, et cetera. Like I don't understand. I don't know. I try to be like the same person, like wherever I'm at. I don't really switch up very much. There I have emotions like everybody does, and I'm sure like
Yeah,
he also has his own thing, but like it also just makes me wonder, it's like, okay, you see like all of these different people, they mostly seem like nice and cordial, but then it's just like how much different are people when you shut the door? Like, how much different are these, like because that is the reality kind of like is that it's like whenever you see abusive families, whenever you see domestic violence, whenever you see like whatever these things are, they don't just, always advertise themselves that way, but the life that they live, behind, the screen is a lot different. It's just like it's like they 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 live two lives in a sense. Like, and I never fully understood like that. Like, I mean, there's I understand that like people do have their own like emotional changes, and that's not quite what I'm talking about. Where it's just like um, where it's like okay, one minute you're happy, then like later you're sad, but it's like I don't know. It's like sometimes like it sounds like people like can be two completely different people. Like, just like one minute like he was talking to you on the street like how's it going, et cetera, et cetera. And then like, later it's just like I'm gonna kill you. It feels so far and away from like, the same person. And I don't know, like
yeah,
I struggle with this like, like people always talk about autism. Like autism is like it's like a trendy thing now. I go to Spencer's Gifts and I see like 10, 20 different shirts all about I'm autistic, and it's just like, oh, all of you, wow. Like, and I was like wonder like, oh, am I autistic like on a spectrum? Sure. I don't know. Like I really don't know, but it's just like I also I don't care to a degree.
yeah,
Like I want to understand it, but I don't like really care to label myself. But like at the same time, it's just like what is that? Like I don't know. It's just like what is it where like people like switch up and like have like a different exterior that they project themselves as, and then like the like kind of hidden life behind that.
yeah. So when I like as additional information, when I pulled up to the house and he was walking out, like I could tell that he had been drinking. And so that definitely can impact your behavior. It doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't make you do things you would never do.
Right.
As some people like to say, it loosens you up a little bit. So I could tell he'd been drinking in the way he was talking. And then when I looked up because I looked up his address after I was home after he called and threatened me, and I found out that he had multiple arrests in another state for drug use and trafficking. And then I saw on Facebook a couple months ago that he got arrested for trafficking drugs. So there was other substances that were causing him to maybe move around the spectrum of emotions a
Yeah.
little bit more. Um, and what you were talking about with like how people present, that's that for me ties into the check on your strong friends essay that I had, because there are so many people that will put this front facing persona of like, my life is so happy, my relationship is so happy, and like everything in life is going so well for me, when behind closed doors they're an entirely different person. And I think that those are, because I think that domestic violence is something that is not necessarily talked about as much as it should be from the guy's side, I guess,
Right.
because there's, once again, there's a lot of shame wrapped up in it, and that it's like, oh well, you guys are always posting that like you guys are so happy, and it's like, but you don't know if that's real. And I think that it's not a criticism of people that post about how happy they are, because I think that there are certainly people that are, but be like, especially with people in your life, if there's a person and they're just like your friend, and there's a certain way that they post, and then they get in a relationship and they're just like constantly posting these gushy things, and it's like, if that wasn't natural for them, to me it would indicate that there was like a subtle change. And it's like, are you posting these things about your new partner because you really feel that way? And if so, that's wonderful, and I'm so happy for you. But or is it because you're partnered with a person that's highly anxious and their anxiety controls them, and they get super upset if you're not like constantly affirming them? And part of that, and the part of the issue with the social media is like, well, you need to be posting about me, you need to be saying these things public so that everyone knows that
Yeah.
you think
I
these
think there's
things
a lot
about
of
me.
comparison. Like, oh, like, that girl, her boyfriend is constantly
Oh
posting
yeah.
about him.
Exactly. And it's like, well, those are people that are both like mature, well balanced, integrated people that have a very happy and loving relationship. And the way that they are making money now is by posting about their relationship
Yeah.
and having a following and making that kind of content. And it's like, we're just two people. Like, we shouldn't be comparing what we say about each other to them. And also it's like, who is that for? Because it's like, in a happy and healthy relationship, you can post about your partner, but you also shouldn't have to. You
Right.
should just be like, it's how you deal with them, and feeling the need to constantly broadcast. Like I said, I'm not trying to judge people that do that,
Right.
but just like having an awareness and making sure that there's healthy boundaries for those kinds of things, because sometimes the things that they post, I mean, it happens. I mean, I feel like every week there's some kind of influencer that has some kind of public persona that absolutely crumbles around them because something comes out about their life, and it's like, oh, that was entirely false and fake, and just they found their lane to be able to utilize the algorithm to give themselves a specific lifestyle that was entirely built around a lie.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean,
making
so
sure
yeah,
to,
there's like two different distinctions though, because then you have like influencers, which like I can almost understand that a little more. It's like if you're not really an influencer, then it's like even more confusing because I think what happens is like those people who aren't influencers tend to like look at influencers and try to copy and but like
yeah,
but it's like whenever you talk about like whenever you hear about like manosphere type guys, it's like it seems like whenever there's like any type of documentary or like anything of the nature where they talk about like they talk to like a girl who knows this guy and they're like, yeah, he's nothing like that, like when he talks to me, like the person that
yeah,
he is when he's like talking to you're into Bravo, right? So it's like I watch Below Deck, and like, so I remember there was one in particular where like there was like some like I don't know, I assume like Manosphere like influencer or something that went on, and they were like shooting like a video and like the girl he's with and like I mean, you can also see it. Like it's just like the switch up between like, oh, this is who I'm presenting myself as to people that are paying to get advice from me versus like the actual thing I'm doing to have and maintain this relationship, which really all that you're doing is like making money off of these people, and that's what enables you to have this relationship.
Mhm. Yeah, there's those kinds of things. The spotlight attracts a certain kind of person, and they're going to present a certain way. And unfortunately, there's it attracts a lot of people that have issues inside of them. And they're like, I know how to play a role. I know how to be the person that is getting attention. And it rewards that, unfortunately, because then you're having these people that are not mentally well, not balanced, giving out advice and giving out sort of instruction essentially for how to behave and how to live. And they're not a good example because the incentives are wrong for for the scenario.
Right.
So yeah.
All right. We can wrap this up. I really appreciate you taking time out, to talk with me about all of this information. I mean, is there anything in particular that you want to, plug? Do you want to? Is there anything that you feel like maybe we haven't touched on that like you feel like might be worth talking about?
Um, I think the only thing is that I think it would be just like try practicing having less shame about things because nobody really cares as much as you think they do in a positive way. Like people don't necessarily care about the things that you think they're going to care about as much. Where it's like if someone were asking, if one of my friends was saying, "Oh, hey, can you help me with this?" I'm not going to be thinking, "Oh, that guy doesn't know how to do that for himself." That's not what, but that's what mostly his thought process could be, is like, they're going to know that I'm not good at this. And it's like, people just ask for help. Don't feel ashamed for asking for help. And if it's something that you've tried or that you know is outside of your capacity, don't feel bad about that. Just ask for the help, get it done so that it stops bothering you. um, but yeah, just making sure that you're able to ask for help when you need it and don't feel bad about it, because most people, whatever your concern about asking them is not really going to be their concern. If they are a person that is well aligned and well oriented, they're going to be like, oh yeah, of course I can help you. Like their concern is, when can I help you, not why are they asking me for help. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm just like wondering where like obviously there's societal pressure, but like where does that like shame really come from? And also it's just like sometimes it's like easy to say, okay, have less shame or whatever, but like it's like for me as an individual, like how do I just stop having carrying that emotion, I mean I kind of I've explored my emotions in a lot of ways, so it's just like I do have like a certain level of like awareness where I'm able to kind of like understand like I have a way of like separating myself from my emotions and being able to like
Hmm.
watch them and sit with them
Yeah.
and not necessarily have them like navigate my like dictate my actions, which is not something that everybody it comes from meditation, sometimes mushrooms, other things, like it's just like but I mean like I think people struggle with that. I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna say I never struggle with it. Sometimes I lose it, right? Like sometimes
Yeah.
you get caught in the emotion, and then you forget to create that distance between
Hmm.
yourself and the emotion, and then like the action. Um, but I don't know if like how do I like what's the root of the issue? What is the thing that like we can solve if there was an actionable, way to ensure that like people don't feel shame about asking for help? I guess that's the question.
For me, I think it would come down to stated and unstated expectations from other people. And so just examining if if say for me, if I needed to ask for help with something from a specific person and my initial thought is like shame about it for whatever reason, just taking a moment out to be like, why am I feeling that and where is that coming from? Is that coming from because somebody when I was 7 said I should be able to deal with this, like I should always be able to handle these things on my own because whatever reason. And so just asking, why am I feeling that? Or is it just something that like I saw someone online say that I should be able to do it? Or for me, for myself, I should be able, like for me, for myself, the barrier that I have is that I think I should be able to do it myself. And so just like being able to sit with why I feel bad about asking for help for something and just sort of unpacking that shame and trying to figure out where it comes from and then being able to release it because it's like is that a good enough reason to not ask for help? Because if you had a leak in your house and you owned a home and it was creating mold in your house
Right.
and you're like, oh, I should, like, it's my house, I should be able to fix it myself. And it's like, and then you don't because you don't have the skill set. It's going to cost so many more thousands of dollars down the road to be
Yeah.
able to rehab that area of your property when you could have been like, you know what, I don't have the skill set. Let me ask my friend that's a plumber to
Right.
help me out with this. So does that seem like a practical way of helping
Yeah, I
resolve?
mean, I think so. I was immediately thinking though, it's like, there's also some people who just like maybe they don't have a friend who's a plumber, or it's like I don't know how to get to those people. But I mean, I yeah, I
Well, for
think
those,
yeah, good.
I was just going to say for those people, it's like if you don't know someone someone you know probably does.
Right.
And sometimes it's just like maybe post it on Facebook if that's the way that you can reach the most people, or if you have a good friend or um, an older adult that you know, because you like we're all 7 degrees from Kevin Bacon or whatever. Or it's like you're probably less than 7 degrees from a competent plumber. So just being able to, and that's just another layer of asking for help where it's like, okay, I should know a plumber. It's like, no, if you don't, you don't. So ask for the help. Don't be ashamed about it. Look, just utilize what you do have to try and get the help that you need. And also Google exists. So you can
Yeah.
find a plumber that way.
Yeah. Um, so I mean, I think before, like I'm trying to figure out how to segue this right. But I mean, so going off of what you just said, I think maybe one thing that could be helpful is just, people stating, up front, like, hey, if you have, like, if you need something, don't feel like, I'm happy to do that. You know what I mean? Just laying that out, like, as a beginning, because I think maybe sometimes it's about like, maybe sometimes the reason people don't ask for something is because they don't feel like they don't know whether they can get it, right? Like that's the thing.
Mhm.
And I think by starting up front and and saying like, hey, you can ask me for whatever, and it's like I'll always take it. It's like I'll do my best, right? Like you can't guarantee that, I can't guarantee that I can solve every single problem. But I can try my best to help you out if you ever need anything. So I'm just gonna say that to you, man. If you ever feel like you need anything, for sure, hit me up. I'm open. And I think that like creating that like upfront verbal communication, I think is something that could be helpful in that space because it's not because then it doesn't put the earnest on the other. It doesn't put the obligation on the other person to have to wonder like, oh, is this okay, right? Whereas you've already kind of said this is okay, right? Like this is like where the boundary is. Um, so I mean, like, I'll leave it on that. I did want to say, like, do you want, again, do you want to plug anything? I know you said you have some poetry. I know you're doing battles and stuff. Anything you want to just throw out there?
Yeah, so you can follow me at John Jons, John's Philosophy on Instagram. My first name is Jonathan. My middle name is Gabriel. That's why my rap name is Gabriel. And then I also have my Twitter where I make fun of battle rappers. Sometimes I pretend that I'm a battle rapper. And my Twitter or X handle is Gabriel ____ 94. Um, but yeah, so I crack jokes on there that maybe one person will laugh at, and I pretend to be a battle rapper. And on Instagram, I just sometimes I write things, sometimes they're poetry, sometimes they're philosophy. And yeah, that's the two places you can find me.
All right, cool. Fire, man. Appreciate the conversation. I hope you have a great day, bro.
Me too. Much appreciated. You have a great day.
All right, see ya.
Peace.